channel. Thank you, Sheila. And so the link for the recording will be sent out to all of those who registered for tonight's program. Deanie, the slides are not advancing on my screen. Are they advancing on yours?
No, and
there we go.
I don't know why. Here we go. They're moving slowly. Sorry about that.
It's mid-December. The slides are tired.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't yet know about ANJAC, or maybe haven't been with us in some time for one of these webinars, we'd like to talk a little bit about our mission for a moment. ANJAC's mission is really to help municipalities make good decisions about the environment and for healthier communities. And we do that by primarily working with the more than 300 active environmental commissions across the state of New Jersey. So we have 564 municipalities, and more than 300 of them have environmental commissions. We also provide support to green teams, open space committees, elected officials, and we do lots of work at the state levels of government as well, where we hear commonality of concern or struggle among municipalities. So we are Environmental Commission's voice in the legislature, at the DEP, other agencies, and to the governor's office as well. So it's our pleasure to be here for you in your needs all year long. Next slide. ANJAC is a 501c3 organization, so we are a nonprofit organization, and we are able to bring programs like this and support to municipalities and environmental commissions throughout the year because of your support. So if you are in a position to consider giving donations at the end of this year, we ask that you think about ANJAC and you help us to be able to help communities in their decisions and their efforts to protect the water we drink, the air we breathe, and the food we eat. We cannot do this kind of programming without you, and we cannot provide support to municipalities all year long without you. We also receive significant support from foundations. But unfortunately, many foundations are moving away from environmental support, so your contributions mean even more to us these days. So thank you so much for everything that you do and your support of ANJAC. And with that, I may be turning it over. Be enthralled with the night sky after we watch this. And so then we will have a presentation and we'll open it up to Q&A. So we ask you all to get cozy and join us in watching A Dark Sacred Night.
When we talk about the
Oops, the audio just went out.
night sky, it's not just the moon and the planets and the bright stars, but if the sky is really dark, you would see thousands of stars, and you would see a rich Milky Way. In some areas in the world where it's still not lost, the Milky Way is so dense and so bright you can see your own shadow cast on the ground just from the center of the Milky Way. You appreciate you live in a galaxy, you see the shape of it, you see the dark lanes in it, you see the spiral arms projected in front of each other. It gives you like a perception of where you are in the cosmos. You see what people in ancient Greece saw, you see what people in the Roman Empire saw, and you see actually what Vincent van Gogh saw. If you look up at the night sky from New Jersey, all that is lost. If the simple thing of just aiming the lights down would achieved, the night sky would come back. So back in the old days, I would say till maybe the mid-20th century, the astronomers actually worked from where they lived. There was active observing going on from Harvard College Observatory, from Cambridge, Massachusetts. The telescopes were in operation till 1970. Princeton University had a dome that was running till perhaps early 2000. That's all gone. You can't really do any serious work from here anymore.
This here is it's a long way, right? You fly here from New York and then take another flight and then you drive 2.5 hours and then you're 100 kilometers from La Serena. It's a big glow in the sky, and Santiago I see from here on photographs, which is very far. You see light pollution basically everywhere. It's impossible to escape. And I mean, if it was some necessary thing for our survival, right, that would be fine, I guess, but it's just a complete stupid waste of energy resources and destroying our nature. I think it has to be recognized that the sky is part of our nature. And in fact, we are very lucky with this planet. There's so many planets where there's a thick atmosphere and you don't see anything. That's a good one.
Yeah, light pollution has been now measured from the Earth over the past decade, rapidly much worse. About 80% of the US has now lost the vision of the Milky Way. Light pollution has increased at least 50% in the past 25 years, but up to 400% in many places. One reason is actually conversion to LEDs. LEDs are inexpensive now, they save energy, they're extremely bright. Now, instead of cutting back on the energy use, what was kept constant is the amount of money we pay for the energy or the amount of energy we waste, and lights were made 10 times brighter.
I mean, we're in dusk, the sun is just setting, and this is causing a glare. If you're driving out from this direction, there's this bright light shining in your eyes. It's not really helping anyone.
And what light pollution is, it's the inappropriate or excessive amount of outdoor lighting. So light actually goes in every direction. At least half of this light then is totally wasted. It goes out into the clouds. But some of it actually is causing glare because it hits this house here with a window, someone trying to sleep.
We're in Princeton, the sun just set, and this is the parking lot of the YMCA. You see these very bright white LEDs that are not good lights because they're too bright and they're not shielded. They are aimed sideways and much of the light is escaping up in the air.
There are a couple of important aspects of light pollution. I would probably start with health. There is now ample scientific research in medicine showing that light pollution has strong adverse health effects. It has been clearly linked to an increased rate of breast cancer. By elevating the risk of breast cancer something like 20% or more for women who live or sleep at conditions with strong ambient light. It has been linked clearly now to depression and diabetes. This is fairly new research. It's the result of the past maybe 20 years, partly because light pollution has been growing by hundreds of percent, and partly because there's more awareness now. But unfortunately, the practices that actually decreasing light pollution is lagging behind. It's not happening.
The critters in this, even in this tiny patch of wood, would appreciate just the natural light and nothing else.
So light pollution has an enormous impact on the ecosystem on Earth. It's not appreciated, but There are many creatures here that live under dark conditions and used to living under dark conditions. For example, migrating birds navigate using the stars. Other example is hatching turtles. The little turtles hatch from the egg and they look around and they go towards the brightest lights, which unfortunately are not towards the ocean and not the stars, but they start going up to the highway. Other example is insects. There are studies showing that in England, at areas that are overly lit and light polluted, the amount of moths compared to previous years decreased by more than 50%. And there are other crazy statistics showing of how many insects are just dying or not present anymore as in the food chain.
So what we see here is like a jam of dead flies and moths and mosquitoes in the base of this lamp. In fact, I've seen some lamps where the entire bottom half was filled with bugs, so all the light was just going up in the sky. There was a natural shade by poor dead bugs underneath the bulb. What's fascinating about these lights is that even spiders figured out that there's light pollution, and they cast all their webs right on the lights there, because they somehow figured out that lights attract so many bugs that they can harvest those bugs by tactically placing their webs around them.
In terms of the environmental impact of light pollution, let's also discuss the amount of energy we waste. The current estimate is that about 40% of outdoor lighting in the US is wasted. It just goes up in the sky. So that corresponds to about $3 billion per year, essentially lighting up the universe by converting carbon into photons. That's equivalent to about 21 million tons of carbon dioxide emitted every year. The problem is, when you look at a street lamp, you don't actually see the smoke coming out. They all look just fine because the energy that's being generated is far away. But one has to actually think about it. This enormous waste. I don't want to force the beauty of anyone. I think it's beautiful, but I understand that people are less interested in it. But I think everyone is interested about their health, and everyone should be interested about the environmental impact of this and the waste of energy. Actually, what's really annoying about light pollution is that the solution is very easy, and yet we're not doing it. And you see other areas like that with humanity. The key words are: you need dim lights, you need well-shielded lights, and prefer warm red colors.
The lighting in this little alley is essentially perfect. The light fixtures are perfectly well shielded. The color is dim orange, it's not overlit, and they're well spaced. I actually don't understand why this is such a rare sighting, but unfortunately it's very rare to spot something like well designed and modest. This is Princeton's First Aid Rescue Squad. It's a relatively new building, and it has essentially perfect lights in front of it. They're well shielded and they lead to a uniform illumination of this entrance where emergency vehicles would enter or exit the building. This is a relatively dark field, but I don't think it's very dark. There are still some lights around. The reason we came here is an idea to establish something like a dark sky sanctuary within Princeton. If you think about it, we don't just fill every available space with buildings. We need areas where we have a field, we have grass, we have a meadow, and we all feel the need for these areas. Similarly, I think we could have an area which is dedicated to actually seeing the night sky, where we would guarantee that there are no bright lights around, no stray lights blinding us, where we can come and see the stars or any kind of night sky phenomena. If a bright comet appears in the sky, close to the horizon, we would come out here and we would observe it.
Avoid excessive lights, again, that's the dim. Shielded means it's not inappropriate, it doesn't go to other houses or to the woods or to space. And the red, the warm colors are important because they are less of a disruption for our circadian rhythm, and also they scatter less in the atmosphere. They cause less of an air glow or like a night glow from light pollution. So basically, this fixture here, which I was showing, all you need to do is have a shield on top and make sure that no photon escapes above the horizon. In fact, the shield should be such that all light falls to where it's intended to fall. Use LEDs. LEDs consume less energy, but don't overlight. LEDs can be dimmed. You can dim them from 10% to 90% anywhere in the range. So dim them. Use smart technology. There are many places on Earth where lights are dimmed at midnight. If you go around in Princeton, you would see a parking lot floodlit at 4 a.m. in the morning on a winter night, the same way as it is at 7 p.m. There is a lack of education. People without any bad intentions, clearly, they're just buying the cheap, super bright, white LEDs. They put it in the parking lot sideways and everything is floodlit. They're unaware of all these effects. So it's just getting worse. There's no central regulation of any sort about these practices. So I think the predictions are unfortunately very bad. But to be a bit more optimistic, I think if anywhere in Princeton we could change that and could set a very good example that may be followed by other either campuses or little townships, it can lead to potentially big change. There were ways to reverse many other things in the history of environmental damage. A century ago, it was perfectly fine to just burn any trash you had anywhere. It was fine to operate factories in the middle of a city burning coal. London was covered in black soot for a century, and now it's not. It was, again, as I mentioned, it was fine just to let your used motor oil down the drain, and you can't do it anymore. Factories could dump all their waste into riverways, and right now you can't do it anymore. So there were things that at some point probably seemed irreversible and terrible, and yet they changed in a positive way. I hope that light pollution, given the solution is so simple, can be reversed. Again, we need to shield the lights, dim the lights, and use warm colors, and it will be better for everyone.
All of you, but I'm super excited to follow up with this and see what else we can do. We got a lot of great tips, and Jared just put a link to the video on our chat as well. So we'll be sharing that out with the rest of our presentation. So give me a second. I am going to now pop up our presenters' information. Can you see that?
Yep, we've got it.
Okay. Great. Let me just introduce our three presenters today. We're excited. First up, we have Steve Mariconda. He's a Dark Sky International Delegate for the Dark Sky New Jersey chapter, an environmentalist and outdoorsman enthusiast, and a graduate student at Rutgers School of Public Health. He lives in Saddlebrook, Bergen County, and is currently making a living as a musical entertainer in senior living communities, healthcare facilities, and group homes. Jim Webster is the Astronomical Society. He's with the Astronomical Society of Toms River and a Sky International delegate as well. So Jim plays a vital role in promoting New Jersey's dark skies by providing advocacy and education, hosting the Dark Sky New Jersey website, and sharing his stunning photos, because this is one of his photos. And John Cashwick has served as councilman in the town of Clinton since 2022, where he leads the Green Team and the Environmental Commission. Previously, he was councilman in the borough of Gloucester from 2005 to 2014. John holds a master's degree in environmental management and volunteers with the New Jersey Sierra Club Regional Council of the National Parks Conservation Association. He's also an avid outdoorsman, and he enjoys hiking, camping, and stargazing in our national parks. So welcome. So I'm going to let you guys take it away from here.
Hey, good evening, everybody. This is John Cashwick speaking. So first of all, thank you, Deanie. Thank you, Jennifer, and the rest of the folks at ANJEC for hosting us this evening. And again, for all the hard work that you do. Being in elected government and working with environmental commissions for basically almost the last 20 years, I'm very impressed with the work that ANJEC does to help our local governments in terms of environmental issues, with the education you provide and the like. So again, thank you for doing this evening. So I've basically been a casual stargazer. I don't have any astronomical experience, but I enjoy looking at the night sky. And over the years, it's become less and less apparent that you could actually see the stars in New Jersey. So that, along with my environmental background and understanding the impacts that light pollution is having with wildlife and animals and plant life, it makes me want to do more for curbing light pollution. A few years ago, my husband and I co-founded the Light Pollution and Night Sky Committee with the New Jersey Sierra Club. And recently we started partnering, basically maybe a year and a half ago, we started partnering with Dark Sky New Jersey, where we met Jim and Stephen. And together we've been working on a number of issues. The most important one is there's actually a state bill that's pending that would require any state-funded lighting projects to be dark sky and compliant and energy efficient. Assemblywoman Michelle Drulis and Senator Andrew Zwicker have been spearheading this in both of the houses, and we've testified in Trenton to try to get this passed, with also Jared Flesher, the filmmaker this evening, and Professor Bakos have also been part of that, crafting that legislation. So that's one of the issues that we're working on. So basically, you have multiple grassroots organizations working on this issue and elevating it to make it more prominent, because it's something you don't really notice, just an additional light here and there, but over the long term it becomes brighter and brighter, and soon you just don't really notice that you can't see the sky any longer. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Jim Webster, who's going to take you to the next part of the program.
Hi, how you doing? Again, Jim Webster, Dark Sky delegate, and one of the founders for Dark Sky New Jersey. And let's start with the heritage of our night sky. How disconnected have we become from the night sky? In 1994, there was an earthquake in Los Angeles, about 3 o'clock in the morning. And when the people came out to assess the damage, they were confronted with something that, they'd never seen before. What is that, strange, milky shimmering thing in the night sky? And of course, that was the Milky Way. And they reported this to the Griffith Observatory, the police department, and it almost sounded like something out of a sci-fi movie. And it just shows generations of people have not seen the Milky Way. So we're kind of like losing, our heritage of the night sky. And that's what we're all here about. We want to get that back. New Jersey, Sierra Club, the Audubon Society, NJAC, Dark Sky, astronomy groups, and more people really need to get involved and understand this. Next slide, please. So it's been said that only 2 in 10 people live under, the night sky of natural darkness. And as you can see from the little slide picture here of the United States, over the years, that light pollution is actually, getting worse. And up in north central Pennsylvania is a place called uh, Cherry Springs. It's a state park, was one of the first ones that was registered as a certified dark sky location. And even from this map over the years, it's been getting more and more encroaching onto the park. So that's something, that's worrisome about this. So it's an impact to the night sky heritage, ecological impact, economic, human health, and safety. Next. So what is light pollution? In the statement presented here, light pollution is excessive, misdirected, or obstructive artificial light at night that washes out the starlight in the night sky. It interferes with astronomical research. It disrupts our ecosystems, has adverse effect on our own health, and it's a waste of energy and money. I would say, all of that is important, but, the ecosystem, our own health, I think is the real big ones that we need to really be concerned with. There's 3 forms of light pollution: sky glow, glare, and light trespass. Those are the big 3. There's actually another one that's getting talked about lately, but I don't have that here. Next. So, as you've seen in the video, sky glow, dome of brightness on the horizon that just goes right up into the night sky, and you can attribute that to a lot of street lights, floodlights. Those are two examples right there. And you can barely see the Milky Way. And as you get further and further to one side of the screen, the night sky just kind of like disappears. Next. Then we have glare. Glare could come from those same resources of the street lights as well as the floodlights. We're also getting it now from cars. And, it's a blinding, light from, the high beams. And it's not really high beams anymore. It's just the newer lights where you're getting that. And you're getting glare, at shallow angles, and it causes pain. And as we get older, it actually gets worse. Next. This is one that a lot of people are familiar with. And of all the potential things that we could put down for ordinances, this is the one that usually comes up first. It's called light trespass. And that light could be coming from your street lights, your neighbor's lights, beaming into your house, into your bedroom at night. And you can actually consider this a, private properties right issue. You should not have, your township or your neighbor's lights, beaming into like your bedroom when you're trying to sleep at night. Next. So here's a good slide from National Geographic, and it gives a good representation of everything we spoke about. Right from that one street light there, you have the upward light because it's not shielded. But even if it's shielded and if the light intensity is too much, you have it where that light can actually, bounce off the ground and also go up, a reflected light. And I've actually seen that where in one of the parks where they have crushed shell with a highlight, and in an observing area that we have, that you can actually see the light if you're doing any kind of imaging. And then we see the glare zone, from the street lights, as well as light trespass. And that street light can just as well be from a floodlight as well. Next. Okay, this is where I believe I'm turning this over to Steve now. And this is a very important slide. It really sums everything up, why I care about light pollution. Go ahead, Steve.
Thanks, Jim, and Steve Mariconda. And thanks everybody for having me here to speak on this today. So, so yeah, why care about light pollution? Take your pick. It affects so many different things, not just stargazing and astronomy, but it affects animals, plants, money, of course. Like we use a lot of use of resources, and it affects our planet in terms of CO2 emissions, our neighbors, visibility, and human health. Next. So we'll start off with some of the ecological impacts. Many of you might know that most species of life on our planet are actually nocturnal. So when we're shining all of this artificial light into nocturnal environments, we're disrupting their circadian rhythms, or many of the biological rhythms that have been established over billions of years, actually. Because most animals and wildlife can't tell the difference between sunlight and artificial light. So you got things like frogs and toads ribbit less because it interferes with their mating cycles. Bats, insects, you name it. It just affects all different types of wildlife. So we'll go into more detail about that. Next slide. So birds, this is one I'm sure people have heard of. There's been some cases in New York City, for instance, where like with the sky beams for the World Trade Center every year when they do that, millions of birds get sidetracked from their migration patterns because of these lights. The lights disorient them and distract them. They fly around in circles. They get exhausted. Many of them don't complete their migration. They crash into windows that are reflecting artificial light off of them. So this is just a really big problem for the survival of birds. There's people who literally come around and pick up the dead birds off the street in a lot of cities. So it's an issue that Dark Sky has been working with Audubon on, the Lights Out campaign, just trying to, especially during migration season, which happens twice a year in fall and spring, to just limit any excess of outdoor lights, like turn them off if you don't need them, turn off the lights indoors for buildings, skyscrapers and such. And yes, birds are a big impact in terms of light pollution. Next slide. And one thing I should say about birds too, they also use the night sky as celestial navigation, just like sailors have done for a long time. So, this is just casting all that glow into the sky really can disrupt the way they're migrating and much more. In terms of insects may be the most heavily affected by light pollution. There's a term called the insect apocalypse. Something like 60% of all insects have been basically wiped out since the 1950s for many reasons, pesticides, of course, but also artificial light. The phrase of a moth to a flame or moth to the light. Insects are, especially nighttime pollinators like moths, are severely impacted by artificial light at night. Even if the light is shielded, these moths basically think that it's the moon, and they have to have their back towards the moon. That's the way evolutionarily that most pollinating insects operate. So they end up just flying around in circles until they get exhausted, and they don't carry out their mating rituals and their pollinating tasks. So of course this ends up causing larger ecological disruption, right? Because if we're killing off the pollinators, what's going to happen with our agriculture and biodiversity in general? So this is a big deal. And fireflies, yes, there's been less fireflies in recent years. Because artificial light interferes with their own natural lighting patterns that they use for mating and other things like that. So yeah, you might notice, I mean, I wasn't around 50 years ago, but 50 years ago, there were more insects that were hitting your windshield when you drove around. Now, how often do you have tons of bugs hitting your windshield? You probably only notice that when you go out to an area that is very natural, like maybe the Catskills or the Adirondacks. So yeah, we got to work on restoring our insect populations, and this is one way that we can do it by addressing light pollution. Next slide. Just a good visual example there. Out of all wildlife, insects are the most, I would say, the most heavily affected, but it really does matter in terms of just ecosystem health. So this all comes around and affects humans. Next slide. Yes, plants. So many people don't think about this, but plants have biological circadian rhythms just like human beings do, just like animals do. So they rely on a natural cycle of bright days and dark nights. So when you have light, as you can see in that right picture there, the area where the street light is directly shining, it confuses the plant. It causes the leaves to stay on longer because it thinks that it's still receiving daylight. So the issue with this is that when the leaves are supposed to be shed to avoid getting damaged by the cold, the leaves end up staying on the tree and doing damage to the tree. Shortens their lifespans. And it does the reverse in the spring. It'll cause trees to bud early when it's still too cold. So yes, I know a lot of people like their garden lights and stuff like that, but really we shouldn't, plants need sleep too. We shouldn't be shining light on them when it's dark. Next slide. And human health, which is, I'm a public health major, getting my master's degree in public health. So this is a big thing here, part of my thesis. Basically too much light at night, whether it's indoor or outdoor, especially indoor in terms of human health. This is limiting it's messing with our circadian health. Like, we evolved over millions of years to be outside in bright sunlight. And then we had very dark nights. And this was a trigger for our brain to start producing melatonin, which is basically the sleep hormone. It triggers our natural sleep cycle. And also, melatonin is an antioxidant that works against cancer formation. So when we are bathing ourselves in artificial light at night, we're basically tricking our brain to think that it's still daytime. And this has been linked to many different types of cancer, particularly hormonal cancers, breast cancer in night shift workers like nurses. It's been linked to diabetes because limiting melatonin and lectin in our brains causes us to eat more, and it leads to all these unnatural patterns that really did not exist before the advent of artificial light. So these are big issues. There's been recent studies linking artificial light and overexposure to artificial light, sleep disorders, to Alzheimer's and dementia. So yeah, this is a big deal. And in terms of glare, as we were talking about before, the glary headlights, those can lead to safety issues, right? Because you're getting blinded on the road, and then you can't see around, like, what's around. It causes your pupils to dilate. So in terms of health, it leads to a lot of safety issues. Next slide. Last thing I'll speak on here before I pass it back to Jim. Light color. So we were talking before about the color temperature of light. Essentially, it goes 2000 Kelvin at one side is like the warmish light that doesn't have a lot of blue. And then you go over here on the picture here to 8000 Kelvin. So essentially the color spectrum of light, you have the neutral white in the middle, and then you have more redder tones towards the warmer side and bluer tones towards the higher side. Basically, daylight, when the sun's out and bright and the sky is blue, we're getting that cool blue daylight. Blue light activates certain sensors in our eyes that tell us to be awake, and it limits melatonin production. So we're supposed to get that blue light during the day, but at nighttime, we really should not, that blue light is what keeps us awake and limits our melatonin production, messes with our sleep. So we want to opt for warm colored lights, like the color of candles. 2000 Kelvin is a great example. No higher than 2700 Kelvin. So yeah, basically we want to go for warmer, more comfortable lights, not glaring lights that hurt our health. And I'll pass it back to Jim. Next slide.
Okay, safety. This has been one of the big debatable topics going on, depending on who you're talking to. Police organizations, you know, they will go back and forth on this. You know, outdoor lighting is supposed to enhance our safety and security at night, but too much light can cause glare that could be wasteful and even harmful. Can you see the hidden danger in this picture? Next. And there it is. Just by getting rid of the glare from the floodlight, you now see that person standing back there. Whether that particular individual was looking to do you harm or not, we won't know that. But yes, the potential is there. The individual can hide in the shadows, and you wouldn't notice them. Smart lights that direct the lights where it is needed creates a balance between safety and the starlight. Next. So putting too much light out there can also be a social justice issue. You know, inadequate, excessive lighting often prevents, is prevalent in lower income areas. And, the ecological disadvantaged communities often lack the financial resources or the political power to affect change to get, the proper lighting out there. Bright lighting is often associated with safety, like we said in the previous slide, but it's not really the case. But that's a debate that's going to continue, and hopefully, over time that we'll get that worked out. Next. So here is the light pollution as represented through the Bortle scale. Bortle 1, of course, is being an excellent, dark sky location, which you can pretty much find out west as well as in Cherry Springs State Park, where you can actually see the Milky Way by your eye. Surprisingly, we can still see it on a really good night in Island Beach State Park, and the astronomy group, with the permits we have, we're able to be there at the nighttime. But to really see it, you have to use a camera right now, whereas in Cherry Springs, you don't really need that to see the Milky Way. And as you get closer and closer towards the city, you can actually see, the stars where they start to disappear. So as we get more urbanized, we lose that majesty of the night sky. And like we said earlier in the beginning slides, there are generations of people that have never seen the Milky Way and unfortunately never will. New Jersey light pollution map that we've seen in the video is also represented here. And we will be using elements of this in a light pollution exhibit down here that's being developed in Jakes Branch County Park. And this is something that we got to correct. Next. So what can we do? Unlike many environmental issues, light pollution is a problem that researchers say that can disappear with the flick of a switch. But that's not necessary. What we need is smart lighting, dimmers, sensors to turn the lights on when we need it and turn them off, when we don't. Next. There's some light solutions that we've discussed, aiming lights down where it's needed will reduce the light pollution and glare, increase visibility, and better illuminating the intended area. Shielding those lights also means less light and not wasting it out into your neighbor's windows, light trespass, or up into the sky glow. So less light is better for ourselves, saving money as well as energy efficiency. Next. Here are some sample lighting where it says, find a dark sky friendly lighting. The wall light fixture is something I actually have on my house. It's shielded where the bulb can be in there but not sticking out from the bottom. So that means the shielding is working. And in the center image to the LED light fixture is actually something that will find in like Cherry Springs, in the town of Cloud of Sport, PA, which partnered with the Cherry Springs State Park. Then you have the one that's labeled IDA. I'm seeing more and more of those in parking lots. The problem with those is that we got to convince people to make the lights dimmer. And the odd looking device next to that is actually a shielded flagpole light. So people who tell you don't have anything available for flagpoles, that's not true. So you don't really need the lights to shine up at the flag, from the bottom. We can do it actually from the top and still keep that where the flag is actually lit up all the time. And where it has the Dark Sky Seal of Approval program label, that is just another example of a wall light fixture. Now these light fixtures are all LEDs. What we've seen recently now is a LED shielded light bulb that can actually go into some of the globe fixtures. And from this one bulb that we've seen, that you can actually have it with a light trespass shield as well. Next. So here is a sample of what you could do for your home and business. We have the before with the really bright white lights, and then the after putting in, the dimmer, light fixtures, LED, dimmer LED fixtures down to that, 2700 or below range. Next. This is a place up in Tupper Lake, New York. This is called the Wild Center, a great place to visit besides the Adirondack Sky Center as well. And the Wild Center fully has embraced being dark sky compliant with this one sample light fixture that you have here. And they also have a display on why they have done it, with the Starry Night sign. Next. John, is this where you want to pick it back up?
Yep, this will be me now. Thank you, Jim. So I'm assuming many of the people on this call are on environmental commissions or somehow involved with local government. So one of the things that you could do that would greatly mitigate light pollution in the state would be to have your municipality pass a light pollution ordinance. We have a list here of some components that you could include in the ordinance. This includes the direction that the lighting is facing, that it's full cutoff. You can do things like control the lighting on billboards, like flagpoles, making sure things are pointed down, not upward. You can control street lighting. You could also incorporate timed lighting and making sure that the certain lights, such as sports lighting, are turned off at a certain time. All of those things can be included in an ordinance. And that's one of the major things that folks on environmental commissions can do is affect one of your roles is to affect change environmentally within your municipal government. So that's why lighting is such an important issue that could be worked on by environmental commissions. Next slide, please. Okay, some of the challenges. First of all, education. Many people are unaware of the issue, or they're not even concerned about the issue. They think that having excess lighting is good, that the more lighting you have, you could see better, it's safer, that sort of thing. So there is a strong educational component to making people aware. Once people are aware of the issue of light pollution, they usually think, that they have an aha moment and realize that it is actually an issue that affects people, wildlife, the ability to see the sky, all those sorts of things. Funding. So once you have an ordinance adopted, you will need to educate people further as to what they can or can't do. You have to have, going to the next step, enforcement as well. You basically, when your municipal officials, they generally work 9 to 5, maybe some of them work in early evenings, but when you might need this as far as being able to observe improper lighting, it might be at 2 a.m. or something like that. So that's a challenge for municipal governments. And lastly, exemption. So if you have an ordinance and certain businesses or individuals want to have exemptions to keep lights on throughout the night, is that really necessary? So that's a challenge as well. Should you actually have that many exemptions, or really should be very limited as to where you would exempt the ordinance and allow unchecked lighting sources? Next, please. And what can we do more? So as I mentioned, reach out to your governing body, your land use boards, on the importance of implementing a light pollution ordinance. The township of Hopewell has what we're considering one of the strongest in the state at this point. And Dark Sky International has a sample lighting ordinance. So there are role models out there that you could use to implement a lighting ordinance in your municipality. Also, we're there at the end of this presentation. You'll have our contact information. We'll be happy to assist you in working on an ordinance and trying to get that passed in your town. So you also, if you pass a lighting ordinance, if you're with Sustainable Jersey and want to seek bronze or silver certification, you can get 10 points. And what other things you could do is contact your utility. One of the challenges that I'm having is I'm trying to work with our local utility to see if we can get certain lighting fixtures, street lighting fixtures in our town replaced with dark sky friendly lighting, but they don't even have that available to towns that want that. So definitely contact your utility company and say that you want dark sky friendly lighting. And lastly, contact your assembly person and your state senator and ask them to support A2196 or S1610. That's the bill I mentioned earlier in the presentation about getting all of our state-funded projects that involve lighting to be dark sky friendly and energy efficient. Next slide, please. And I think I passed that back to Jim at this point.
Okay. One of the areas that we're also working is Island Beach State Park. And one of the challenges they have is that you have the amusement park and the seaside community very close by. The state park does have a ecological significance in there for, the coastal marine life. And there's a concern there. And Astor Astronomical Society of the Toms River area is there quite often, doing our own, star parties for the park as well as our own observing. So it's an important location for us. And I took this image back in 2018, so you can make out the Milky Way, but towards the bottom you can actually see that sky glow that I had mentioned earlier. And Island Beach State Park understands this, and they've approached Astra as well as Dark Sky New Jersey's, being that we pretty much work hand in hand. And we've done light pollution studies for the park, and they've actually made some changes, and they're looking at to make some more changes as well. Next. So our night sky belongs to more than just us. Saving the night skies is more than what the astronomers and the photographers may want. And when I go out and do my presentations, very rarely do I bring astronomy up because that sounds self-serving. It's more about the impact that it has on every living organism on our planet. Human advancement should not come at the cost of our environment, because in doing so, in the end, it impacts us. Next. So this is now and our future, and it's only going to get worse if we don't do anything about it, about the impact of light pollution, the sky glow coming from, all our regions, the impact on the environment. The circle of birds there is from an organization called FLAP, who actually does spend time counting and monitoring the impact of bird strikes because of the light pollution. And again, that US picture that is showing just how bad light pollution is getting. And, if we don't do anything about it, that whole thing is going to turn one big, yellow orange there. Next. So you want to be the solution. Light only what's needed, use energy efficient bulbs, and only use as bright, that you need for the task on hand. Use shielded lights and direct them down, put them on timers, and choose, warm colored light bulbs. And if you really want, join darksky.org and, join the fight, make your voices heard. And if you're in New Jersey, you'll end up eventually, joining us here at Dark Sky, New Jersey. Next. So let's talk a little bit about the meteor shower. We have the Geminid meteor shower that's occurring right now, which is going to peak between December 13th and December 14th. Unfortunately, right now, we also have the moon to contend with, which is going to be just about full. Can we still view it? Yes. There's going to be anywhere from 100 to 150 meteors that are going on, so we'll definitely have a chance of seeing some of the brighter ones. What you really need to try to do is try to find as dark a location as possible away from the street lights and, yes, the holiday lights. It's that time of year. And the moon. So it is possible, as long as we don't get clouded over, with the weather that's supposed to clear out beforehand, you should be able to see some meteors. Now, this meteor shower is also different from that. It's not coming from a comet. It's coming from an asteroid, 3200 Pantheon. And it's not too many of the asteroid meteor showers, but this is a good one. It's gonna, we got the full moon to contend with, like we said, but I think we have a good chance. You're gonna want to see it at the later hours of the night. I wouldn't really, expect to see too many until like after midnight. Next. So we are coming to a close of the presentation. we're going to advance to the next slide with the information that John had pointed out for us. You can find information on Steve and myself for Dark Sky New Jersey at darksky.org, who we are, and that'll list all the chapters that are in the United States as well as worldwide. You could also find us at astra-newjersey.com, Dark Sky New Jersey. There's also a New Jersey darksky.com that'll bring you to the same website. They're all attached, as well as John's email here as well for his work email. But if not, we will all link up together and talk together on things that are going on. So you'll reach one of us, you'll reach all three of us. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. That was lots of great information. We appreciate it. And we've got some questions in our Q&A. So we've got a couple minutes, and hopefully you folks will be able to give us some even more information. The first question comes from Dan, and he is wondering if any of our panelists have thoughts about motion activated lighting as part of the solution, not only for outdoor house lighting, but even for sidewalk and maybe street lighting.
I can talk to that.
That'd be great. Thanks, Stephen.
But yeah, motion sensors I think are essential, especially for residential lighting, for sure. I know people are using that now, although they're still using very bright floodlights, but motion sensor is good. They do have motion censored like pathway lights, and I know in Europe they're doing a lot of implementation of motion censored street lights, but I can't talk to exactly like how that's being implemented in the United States, but I think it's definitely a good idea. It definitely helps reduce light pollution impact.
Wonderful. Anyone else want to add to that?
Sure. I'm definitely in agreement of motion sensor light, because it comes under the category of lighting only when you need it. For a safety concern, I would say motion sensors are more impactful, because you'll have that sudden bright light come on when something is going on that's not supposed to happen. Now, this is my own opinion, nothing official on that. There are light sensors now that are also being designed where it recognizes an animal as opposed to a person going by. So the motion sensors are improving. In fact, my own personal alarm system in the house will recognize when the cat is going by, to knock something off the table, as opposed to the guy climbing through the window.
That's really interesting. I didn't know that. Thanks for sharing. Our next question comes from Kevin, who wants to know if there are programs to educate county civil engineers to start implementing warmer lights for county roads that have lights that conflict with local light pollution ordinances in cities that utilize 5K street lights. It seems like the counties and the cities are not necessarily on the same page here.
And I'll start with that. Last
Thank you,
month
John.
I was at the New Jersey League of Municipalities, and I was speaking with a number of some of the vendors there, the engineers, the lighting contractors, and a few of them knew about dark sky friendly lighting, but very few, especially on the engineer side, very few actually knew about this. And this is a challenge. This is something we have a lot of work to do in terms of educating these people as far as the importance of lighting. And this is part of this is actually educating everybody else and getting this. If enough elected officials and environmental commissions are asking for this, the engineers will look into that and get on board with what the public is wanting. Jim or Steve, you have anything to
add? Yeah, there's definitely material that's out there, and I would say more is needed. From a non-civil engineer perspective, I work in the network technology, so it's not the same. But I'm always willing to do more talks with people on this to get them started, and we can try getting resources to people through additional research. From one of the names I've seen pop up, Dave Ackerman, who is also one of our members who is extremely knowledgeable, could also probably be someone that could help with some of that as well.
Excellent, thank you. Yeah, David Ackerman is also posting some additional resources in the Q&A, so thanks, David, for that.
Yeah, can I add one more thing?
Please.
The individual that did post the questions about the engineers, I believe I actually met him at the Dark Sky Cape May event that we recently had. Great setup if it's who I think it is with this astronomy gear. But Cape May is also another area that's working on light pollution ordinances. And I did give them, they have my information to do further talks with them if they want us out there working with them on it.
Awesome, excellent. There's a question about towns who have light ordinances. So are we aware of any towns with light ordinances for some guidance to create our own? I think we referenced, was it Hopewell?
I can speak to that a little bit.
Okay, great.
Hopewell Township, I think they just have like probably the best one. It has a lot of the check marks that almost look exactly like the dark sky model ordinance. But there are municipalities throughout New Jersey that have like basic laws on like light trespass, basic ordinances on light trespass, like Ridgewood, New Jersey, or Jim, I believe you said it doesn't. I don't know if Holiday City has it. At Tom's River, they have like a light trespass ordinance.
Holiday City in the over by Route 37 has light trespass ordinances. I don't think they're fully enforced.
Yeah, enforcement.
But if you go up on our Dark Sky New Jersey webpage through the Astra Group, we do list some towns that have some light trespass. Some light ordinances in varying degrees. Hopefully over time, we can actually list more of the towns and, through, what they have, whether it's a fully, light pollution ordinances that are enforced, and then the ones that may just have like the light trespasses in there. So you can go to those resources, and if it's not, fully what you're looking for, let us know and we'll try to find what we can.
Okay, excellent. And so, yeah, we've talked about lots of community outreach programs and materials. So go to the Dark Sky NJ website, and you can, of course, contact ANJAC at info@anjac.org. And if you need some of those resources or connections with our speakers, we're happy to provide that. We will also be sending out the link for tonight. So feel free to use that and spread it around to other citizens and to your county and municipal engineer as well. Certainly through the site plan application process is where a lot of these ordinances and light fixtures will be implemented, because that's part of the review process. So ECs, as you're doing your site plan application reviews, you can incorporate this into your comments, and having an ordinance will certainly help because it makes it a requirement, but you can start to bring this up even without an ordinance and talk about why it's important and why you would like to start to have the downward facing lights. Maybe there's opportunity to have connection with the safety officers in your town as well. So think about the police and having conversations with them, because if they're gonna have concerns about this, let's talk about that between the ECs and the police at the start, rather than wait till it gets down the line and you're at a planning board meeting at 10 or 11 o'clock at night trying to suss this out. We've got two more questions I'm going to go through, and then we're going to wrap this up for the evening, because as I understand it, this giant ring light that's in my face is not good for my sleep. So we're gonna start going dark soon. So a chemistry question: does the blue light component in LED lighting? Whoops, it just went away real quick. Does the
Oh,
blue light?
sorry, I just added. I answered it. That's why.
Oh, you did. I wanted to read it
Sorry
for
about that.
our
Sorry.
for our recording. So does the blue light component in LED lights excite the oxygen molecules and then essentially make the sky brighter, as I remember the question?
Oh yeah, about making it brighter. I know. Yeah, there has been some evidence in recent studies that there's actually it helps with the not helps. It might have an interference with oxygen like creating ozone, so leading to air quality issues. So not really related to brightness, but related to the impact on the air we breathe. Actually, there's some
Okay.
evidence because that's what daylight will cause the creation of a ground level ozone through ultraviolet radiation. So there is some, it's not 100% conclusive, but there have been some studies on the impact of air quality from lighting. Interesting.
Interesting. Well, we get more light in the summer. We also have more heat in the summer. And so that's probably a compounding effect on ozone, and trapping in the lower atmospheric pollution. All right, last question we have for this evening. We are, this is from Mimi. So we are having a fight against the lighting of sports fields in her neighborhood. The lighting company is Moscow. I'll just go ahead and call them out. Why not? They claim to be dark sky certified. If we believe that there will not be light leakage from the lighting poles, couldn't there be excessive light at eye level? I don't know the answer to this. It might be that we would need to take a look at the specific lighting fixtures. So Mimi, I would invite you to email us at info@anjac.org, and we can look into this a little bit more for you. I think,
Right.
yeah, go ahead, Stephen, go ahead.
So yeah, with sports lighting, it's a little more complicated, right? Because the poles are taller. So there are like specified dark sky in the model lighting ordinance that Dark Sky International put out. There are specific specifications for dark sky compliance with sports lighting. Of course, it's going to be a little bit brighter than typical lighting, but there are like there's a program in place where they work with the manufacturer to make sure there's like proper shielding and not too much excessive spill. And I've actually seen some pretty good examples recently of just I don't even know they weren't working with dark sky, but some of the newer LED sports lightings are much better shielded than the traditional ones that just shine straight sideways. So
That's great to know.
I'd like
As
to
a-
add,
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, I'd like to add to that. If the company is claiming that they are dark sky certified, claims mean nothing. Paper does. You know, show it to me in writing that dark sky certified and show it to me how they are implementing it and how bright are they making it. Then that'll be telling whether they're really dark sky certified or not.
Excellent. Thank you, Jim. And so with that, I would like to thank our speakers. Thank you, Stephen, James, and John for bringing a wealth of knowledge. Thank you, Deanie and Sheila, for organizing this. Thank you for Liz for all the tech support and coordinating this. Thank all of you for being here with us tonight. As a kid who sometimes grew up with 1 star, I thank you for all the work that you're doing and encourage everybody to get outside and look up. It's a little foggy today, and yes, we will have a moon that is coming into full soon, but look up throughout the year and check out our sky, see what you can see. I wish everybody a very happy holiday season, whatever you celebrate. Certainly as we come upon the solstice and the changing of the seasons, I know many of you will be looking to get outside and enjoy our open spaces and looking up at our dark sky. So have a happy, healthy, safe holiday season, and we will see many of you in the new year. Take care, everyone. Have a good night. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Good night, everybody.
thank you for having us.
Night.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.